A piece of news has exploded across Southeast Asia, and in Beijing, it has almost certainly sent people into a frenzy, blood pressure rising, emergency meetings called deep into the night. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet, a man who only days earlier had been praised by Chinese state media as a trusted friend and heir to the great tradition of friendship, suddenly appeared on national television during prime time with an icy expression and an unusually hard tone. He announced that Cambodia would sever its strategic relationship with China, shut down industrial zones and so-called telecommunications and high-tech parks linked to Chinese capital and personnel, and formally invite the United States to establish a military presence and build a base at Ream Naval Base. It was a turn so sharp it would make a Formula One driver think twice. People could only shake their heads and mutter that in politics, especially Cambodian politics, nothing is ever predictable. To understand why Hun Manet dared to play such a high-stakes game, one has to rewind to the honeymoon period between Phnom Penh and Beijing. At the time, China arrived in Cambodia like a modern-day bodhisattva, bearing money, projects, and promises. Billion-dollar contracts, glittering Belt and Road infrastructure plans, and above all, a familiar mantra: we invest without political conditions. For the Hun Sen family, long irritated by Western pressure over democracy and human rights, this was a lifeline. Add to that the desperation of a poor country hungry for capital and infrastructure, and it is easy to see why they believed wholeheartedly. Borders were opened wide, red carpets rolled out, and Chinese businesses were welcomed like family. Coastal land was leased for 99 years, deep-water ports were handed over for development, special economic zones were given near-total freedom, and laws were bent until they almost ceased to exist. In a remarkably short time, Cambodia became a textbook backyard. Chinese signage appeared everywhere, transactions were conducted in renminbi, and casinos sprang up overnight. The Cambodian military, meanwhile, was equipped almost entirely with Chinese hardware: trucks, armored vehicles, rifles, radar systems, all stamped "Made in China." Within the elite, a quiet but dangerous belief took hold. With Beijing backing them, no one would dare challenge Cambodia. The psychological comfort of having a powerful patron bred confidence, even arrogance. Reality struck hard when border tensions with Thailand erupted. What began as minor incidents, stones thrown, sporadic gunfire, quickly escalated into artillery exchanges and air power. In that confrontation, Cambodia's weaknesses were laid bare. Chinese equipment was cheap and plentiful, but often unreliable and poorly maintained. Coordination was weak, morale lower still. Cambodia soon found itself on the defensive, suffering serious losses. In a command bunker in Phnom Penh, Hun Manet, newly in office and already facing a national crisis, picked up the hotline and called Zhongnan High. He expected something decisive, a firm statement backing Cambodia, a naval deployment to deter Thailand, or at the very least emergency weapons shipments. What he received instead was a carefully rehearsed diplomatic line: we express deep concern and call on all sides to exercise restraint. That was it. No ships, no weapons, no concrete action. That moment was a brutal awakening. The money had been borrowed, the land leased, political influence conceded, yet when Cambodia stood on the brink, all it received was a statement of concern. Hun Manet understood then that in Beijing's eyes, Cambodia was expendable. China would never sacrifice its massive economic ties with Thailand or ASEAN as a whole to save a small, poor, and controversial ally. China, at heart, is a geopolitical trader, and traders always prioritize profit over sentiment. The sense of abandonment cut deeper than bombs. Disappointment turned into resentment, and resentment into resolve. Hun Manet's first target was Sihanoukville, once a peaceful coastal town, later transformed into a grotesque caricature of itself. Under the banner of investment, Hundreds of casinos appeared, along with heavily fortified high-tech zones ringed with walls and barbed wire. Inside were not tech startups, but online scam operations, human trafficking rings, and cyber fraud factories. Tens of thousands of victims from Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, India, and beyond were lured there and forced into digital slavery. These complexes were laundering money for Chinese criminal syndicates and had become a source of illicit foreign currency. More than that, they were a national humiliation, staining Cambodia's reputation worldwide. In the past, the Cambodian government had turned a blind eye, partly out of self-interest, partly to avoid angering Beijing. This time, Hun Manet chose scorched earth. A decree unprecedented in its severity was issued. All foreign-linked gambling and cyber scam complexes were to be permanently shut down, illegal foreign workers expelled, assets confiscated, and transferred to the National Defense Fund. Officially, the move was framed as cleaning up the investment environment and protecting public order. In reality, everyone understood it as a direct strike at Chinese money networks. You abandon us in our hour of need, then we cut off your profits. If the Sihanoukville crackdown was an economic blow, the next move was a strategic knockout. Ream Naval Base, where China had poured billions into dredging and construction with the ambition of creating its first true military foothold in Southeast Asia, was suddenly declared open to the U.S. Navy. No more denials, no more ambiguity. Cambodia openly invited the U.S. to establish a permanent military presence and build a base at Ream Naval Base. China paid to build the house, hadn't even moved in yet, and the owner changed the locks and invited China's greatest rival to stay. This was no longer a policy shift, it was a public, irreversible rupture. Hun Manet dared to do this because he understood the board he was playing on. First, his own background matters. Educated at West Point and holding a doctorate in economics from the UK, he's a product of Western institutions. That worldview never disappeared, it merely lay dormant. Second, in a moment when Cambodia was pressured by Thailand and abandoned by China, only the United States had the capacity to provide real protection. Thailand is a U.S. ally. If Cambodia also aligned with Washington, Bangkok would think twice before escalating. Third, Washington has been eager to regain strategic footholds in Southeast Asia to counter China, and Ream was an irresistible prize. Timing, interests, and opportunity aligned perfectly. Regional reactions reflected this shockwave. China was furious but constrained. Sanction Cambodia too harshly, and Phnom Penh would fall fully into Washington's embrace. Use force, and the consequences would be disastrous. More dangerous still is the domino effect. Other small states may conclude that China does not truly protect its partners when things turn ugly. Thailand reacted with mixed emotions: relief at the weakening of Chinese influence next door, anxiety over a potential shift in the military balance. Vietnam watched calmly, practicing its familiar bamboo diplomacy, flexible yet rooted, refusing to lean fully to either side while safeguarding core interests. For Cambodia, this is an all-in gamble. If the United States follows through, Western capital flows in, and stability returns, Hun Manet may be remembered as the leader who rescued the country and shed its image of China's backyard. But if China strikes back covertly, or if the U.S. eventually walks away as it has from other allies in the past, Cambodia could spiral into deeper instability. History will judge. For now, one thing is clear: the regional chessboard has been shaken, and all eyes are fixed on Phnom Penh's next move. Thank you for watching this story. If you found it meaningful, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. And now it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with Societal Stories.